Inside a Viking longhouse, the fire in the central hearth did more than keep people warm. It was the main tool for cooking almost every meal. Archaeology shows that Viking-age kitchens relied on simple grains, fish, meat, dairy, and preserved vegetables, all cooked over open flame with basic tools. Charred grain in post holes, animal bones in rubbish pits, and residues in cooking pots give us a clear picture of what went into those meals. Barley porridge was a standard breakfast for many people in the Viking Age. Barley grew well in the northern climate and could handle poor soils and cold temperatures better than wheat. Grain finds from Viking sites often include barley, and written sources from later Scandinavian history also mention grain porridges as common daily food. Sometimes oats or mixed grains were used in a similar way. But barley stays the most consistent pattern across many sites. The concept is simple. Crushed or whole, barley is cooked slowly in water, whey, or thin milk until the grains soften and the liquid thickens. The result is a warm, filling bowl that gives slow energy for work in the fields or on the water. In some households, it was not only breakfast, leftovers could be reheated later in the day, so nothing was wasted. A modern version is straightforward. Take barley flakes or pearled barley, add water or milk in a pot, bring it to a boil, then let it simmer until the mixture becomes thick and soft. To keep it close to what a Viking-age household might have eaten, you can sweeten it lightly with honey or add a handful of berries on top if they are in season. This dish shows how Viking food was built first on grains, not on constant meat. Once grain is already in the house, the next logical step is to turn it into bread. Flatbread made from barley or rye was more realistic for a Viking kitchen than big raised loaves. The reason is technical and practical. Proper ovens were not common in simple longhouses, while open hearths and flat stones were. Thin breads could be cooked quickly on hot stones or iron pans placed near the fire. Archaeological finds of grinding stones and references to bread in later Scandinavian sources support this pattern. In some regions, small clay or stone baking plates have also been found, which fit well with this thin bread style. To copy the idea today, you can mix barley flour, rye flour, or a combination of both with water and a little salt. This creates a simple dough without yeast. Divide it into small pieces, press them into thin rounds, and cook them on a dry, hot pan or baking stone until brown spots appear on each side. The result is a sturdy, earthy-tasting flatbread that works like a plate or wrap for the rest of the meal. In a Viking setting, this kind of bread would be used several times a day, eaten with porridge, stew, or simple dairy. In a modern kitchen, it can be a base for the rest of the dishes in this video, and it also shows how little equipment you actually need to make bread. After basic grain dishes, Viking-age diets also depended on what the land could offer in different seasons, especially after winter. Nettle soup is a good example of a seasonal dish based on wild greens. When the snow melted and early spring arrived, fresh vegetables were still rare. However, young nettles appear quickly, and they are rich in vitamins and minerals. Written and oral traditions from Northern Europe record nettle as a food plant, and modern traditional recipes in Scandinavia still use it for soup. Modern nutrition studies support this. Nettles are genuinely nutrient-dense, which matches their role as one of the first fresh plants of the year. To make a Viking-style nettle soup, tender nettle leaves are boiled to remove the sting, then cooked with water or broth, along with onions or leeks, and sometimes a little grain for thickness. The taste is similar to a mild spinach soup with a slightly earthy note. For a modern version, you can use fresh nettles if you have safe access to them, or you can replace them with spinach for a closer supermarket option. Cook the greens with stock and onions, then blend or mash lightly if you prefer a smoother texture. This kind of soup helped Viking households recover from hard winters by bringing fresh plant nutrients back into the diet. Next, we move from the field and forest to one of the most important Viking food sources, the water. Fish stew or fish soup reflects the fact that many Viking communities live close to the sea, rivers, or lakes. Archaeological digs at coastal settlements show large numbers of fish bones, and we know that dried and salted fish were important trade goods. In some areas, stockfish, air-dried cod became a major export, which again underlines how central fish was. A basic fish stew uses a simple broth, locally available vegetables, and pieces of white fish added near the end of cooking. In a Viking context, the vegetables might include leeks, small onions, and root vegetables, such as carrots or turnips, depending on the region and period. The broth could come from fish bones, meat bones, or just water seasoned with herbs and salt. For a modern adaptation, you can simmer chopped vegetables in stock until they are soft, then add cod, pollock, or another firm white fish cut into chunks. Cook only until the fish turns opaque and flakes easily. The result is a light but satisfying dish that fits well with flatbread and reflects a real dependence on the sea, instead of the modern stereotype of Vikings eating only meat. Before we go deeper into the heartier dishes, this is a good point for a quick note. Now we can stay with fish for one more method, this time with more focus on cooking technique than on ingredients. Plank-cooked fish is based on a traditional northern way of preparing fish near an open fire. The core idea is that the fish is pinned or tied to a wooden board, then placed close to, but not directly over, the flames. The radiant heat slowly cooks the fish, while smoke from the fire adds flavor. Historical records from later centuries and modern traditional cooking in Norway and other Nordic countries support this method as a plausible extension of older habits. A Viking crew or a small rural household could use local wood, simple tools, and a fresh fish to prepare a meal without complex equipment. To recreate this today, you can buy a food-safe wooden plank, soak it in water so it does not burn too fast, and fix a fillet of salmon or other fish to it. Season with salt and herbs like dill or thyme, then set it in your grill or near a controlled flame so that the heat reaches it from the side. This method produces a smoky, tender result and gives a clear link between modern outdoor cooking and older Scandinavian practice. It is also a good example of how cooking methods, not only ingredients, can link present kitchens to past ones. Fish and grain were common, but meat also had a place, especially when animals were slaughtered during certain seasons. Lamb or goat stew represents a more special dish that was not eaten every single day, but played a role in feasts and important meals. In the Viking Age, animals were valuable, They provided milk, wool, traction, and eventually meat. Instead of cooking large roasts, people could put smaller cuts and bones into a pot with water and vegetables, then simmer everything slowly to create a rich stew that fed many people at once. Evidence from bones found in refuse pits, along with later Scandinavian recipes, supports the idea of mixed meat and vegetable stews. Seasonal slaughter, often in autumn, also fits well with this kind of dish, because stews are an efficient way to use both fresh cuts and tougher pieces that benefit from long cooking. A modern version can use lamb shoulder or goat pieces browned in a pot, then cooked with water or stock, plus root vegetables like carrots, parsnips, and turnips. As it cooks, connective tissue breaks down and the broth gains body. A table with stew and bread is solid, but Viking meals also included simpler side dishes that used local vegetables in smart ways. Honey-glazed root vegetables are one example where Viking-era ingredients are combined with a technique that still feels modern. Honey was the main concentrated sweetener in Northern Europe before sugar became widely available. Root vegetables like carrots, parsnips, and turnips could be stored through winter in cellars or pits, which made them stable ingredients in the diet. To make a honey-glazed side dish, chopped roots are cooked until soft, then finished with a small amount of honey, and sometimes herbs. Some farms kept bees, while others gathered honey from wild hives, so the flavor would vary from place to place depending on local flowers. Today you can roast carrot and parsnip pieces in the oven with a bit of fat until they are browned at the edges, then drizzle honey over them and toss so the residual heat creates a thin glaze. This dish fits naturally beside lamb stew or fish and shows that Viking-age food was not only plain survival food, but also sometimes carefully balanced in flavor. Dairy was another key part of using resources efficiently in Viking society. Fresh cheese and Skyer-style dairy products show how milk was preserved and transformed. Milk from cows, sheep, and goats spoils quickly, especially without cooling. By turning it into butter, cheese, and soured milk products, Viking households could store nutrition for longer periods. The method involves heating milk, adding a culture, then letting it thicken and straining off the whey. Fresh cheese uses a different approach, where milk is curdled and the solids are collected. For a modern Viking-inspired table, you can buy or make thick strained yogurt or skyer, then serve it plain, with herbs as a savory dip, or with berries as a simple dessert element. You can also make a basic fresh cheese by adding acid, like vinegar or lemon juice, to hot milk and straining the curds. This connects directly to the strategies Viking farmers used to avoid wasting milk. Finally, even in a harsh environment, there was room for a small, natural dessert. Berry pancakes, or a simple berry dish, give a realistic end to a Viking-style meal. Wild berries are common in many parts of Scandinavia, and finds of seeds and written accounts show that people gathered and ate them in large amounts. They could be eaten fresh in summer or dried for winter use. Grain-based pancakes cooked on a flat pan over the fire provided a neutral base, while berries and a little honey turned them into a special treat. To create this at home, you can mix a basic batter from flour, water, and a bit of milk or egg if you want. Cook small pancakes on a pan, then top them with fresh or frozen berries, and a drizzle of honey. If you would like a full step-by-step video on any one of these recipes, you can write the name of the dish in the comments. You can also share this video with friends who like both history and cooking, so they can see that Viking food was more than just meat and mead. And if you want to keep learning how people in the past actually lived, ate, and solved everyday problems, you can subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss future videos. You can rebuild a realistic Viking-style meal in your own kitchen and taste a small part of their world.